We were sent on an expedition to an alien Alderson Disk world named Noor, the Arab word for light. This structure orbits a massive red giant, and the radius of the world is 1.2 times the orbit of Mars around the Sun. In theory, over 1 sextillion Earths could fit back-to-back in the habitable zone. Due to the host star orbiting above the structure, there is no day/night cycle. There are also no seasons. If you were ever to visit Noor, experiencing winter or summer means moving more inwards or outwards relative to its sun. Whoever or whatever built this world thought of everything. Due to its sheer size, there is always a risk that parts of Noor would collapse into itself due to gravity. Very small artificial star-like constructs are strategically placed in symmetrical positions both above and under the surface to stabilize both its rotation and relieve most of the gravitational pull. The underside of the construct is purely artificial, and it's made to support the upper side, which is facing the sun. There are no other celestial bodies in the system, as it's suspected they were all used to build this megastructure. However, our research estimates it will only have enough for a small portion of Noor. The rest of the material must have been brought from somewhere else. We were part of the first batch of expeditions sent by the Verne Observatory to make initial observations. I was lucky enough to be part of a team sent in the mild climate zone located in the middle of the ring. Life here was truly something else. Due to the constant exposure to its star, all life forms developed an incredible radiation resistance from constantly taking massive amounts of UV light. This also had an effect on plants and vegetation, as megafauna was present in many places of the jungles we explored. More so, some of the megafauna evolved to become what appears to be a mix between animal and plant. We see initial signs of stuff like eyes and a digestive tract. It really brought the inner nerd of our biologists to life. On a more familiar tone, the insect life appears to be similar to that on Earth. Not that it looks the same at all, but we can observe relatively similar colony mentality in some species. We have collected some specimens, and studies are ongoing. Ultimately, the life cycle of the hunters and the hunted seems to respect approximately the same fundamental rules as back home. Just that everything looks, acts, and behaves in ways that we never thought would be possible. Other teams went to the inner part of the ring. Gravity there is extremely punishing, and the blistering sun creates extreme heat. Our colleagues there say the closer they get to the sun, the harder it is to stay upright, let alone walk. Life here evolved to be very short, flat, and stubby. Most species are cold-blooded and have impressive water retention capabilities. There is very little vegetation. Contrary to this principle, however, some complex vegetation evolved to grow quite tall, with extremely deep roots in order to avoid herbivore creatures. Expeditions to the far side of the inner desert closer to the lush jungles and forests have very different fauna. This principle applies all over Noor, as the world is simply so gargantuan in size that we basically find an entirely different planet worth of biodiversity every couple of tens of thousands of miles. For example, the outer desert can sustain taller forms of animal life. I for one despise the cold, so I can't say I am too jealous of the guys that were tasked with exploring the sprawling Arctic tundra that covers over a third of Noor. Life here evolved to be very tall and thin, due to the much lower gravity. Very low temperatures and hostile climate made life here have a very low metabolism. This is the reason why most species in this area are extremely hostile and predatory. They are opportunistic feeders because they do not know when their next meal will be available. This causes most life here to hunt all the time, except for when it's trying to hibernate. On the inner rim of the frozen biome, research can be done on smaller moss-like vegetation as well. However, in an apparent specialty of Mother Nature on Noor, flora and fauna seem to mingle here as well. Life forms that look like a combination between an animal, moss, and vegetation can grow up to 14 meters or 45 feet in height. They are also incredibly dangerous and the reason for our first and hopefully last loss of life. Research stations are being built all around Noor, however we would need centuries or millennia to explore all of it. You could fit close to 18,000 Earths back to back from the innermost to the outermost rim in a straight line. The surface of the world is 227 million kilometers, or 141 million miles. Every expedition we will ever send will most likely be the first one somewhere. For the time being, we found no sign of advanced life, or at least an early primitive society forming. We also sent an expedition to the outermost edge of the world, and it is exactly what a flat Earther's dream would be, an extremely low-gravity environment with a howling downward abyss. As for the innermost section, it is made out of a purely artificial material that we have yet to identify. Temperatures there are extreme, and our first attempts to send drones made their circuits fry. The material is the same as most of the construct that, for lack of a better word, holds up the surface of Nor. As for us, we still have 3 months left here and a whole lot of things to explore. To whomever reads this expedition report, I hope you will be around to see the rest of the stuff we find both on Nor and in the universe.